Welcome to another episode of Hot Rod City. I'm actually out here in this raggedy little garage today to work on this, the V8 Subaru. I'm sick of it sitting in here. I'm paying insurance on it. Well, I got tags on there, but they're dead. So the goal is to try to get this thing we can drive it. Just drive it. We ain't got to go out and win races, do burnouts, nothing. If I can just drive it up and down to go to Leonardtown, you know, the closest little town is just like 10 miles away. They actually have a car meet there every Wednesday. Just basically just to go out and have fun, draw attention to myself. I've come up with this list of order to do these things to get this car ready to go. Because I'm tired of looking at it in here and I'm itching to get messing with the next project. So this is once this list gets done, this will be what's known as, I call them tinker toys, something I can drive and I can tinker with. I still got a lot of stuff I want to do to this car, and the way it works out with my insurance policies, I have one tinker toy on it, which means as long as I'm working on this until the next big project gets roadworthy, this will still tinker with and keep coming back to. So this is the list. Number one on that list was the first thing I could think of is the fuel tank. It's a stock fuel tank. I actually used a parts car because when I bought this car, it was front wheel drive. And it had a whole mess of stuff that it just didn't want to work, didn't want to drive. So when that tree fell and crushed my rat rod, we pulled the motor out and put it in this. That's how this whole thing started. So I put the whole rear drivetrain in it along with the fuel tank. That fuel tank is now in the way. That's where the exhaust needs to go. So what we're going to do is, the Fox Body Mustang guys do this a lot. They pretty much just put the mufflers with dumps right in front of the rear axle. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to take that fuel tank out, which means I got to pull some big bolts out in order to get that tank out, to get half that suspension out again. And I got to put a fuel cell in. I have a new fuel cell. I've already bought it. I've bought fittings for it and everything else. I don't have any fuel line, no, but I did get a new fuel pump since we're not going to be using the in-tank. The seats have got to get mounted. They're in the way, actually. So the radiator's got to get done. And when I say radiator, that includes the lower mounts, because I did the top mounts. And I got to do the lower mounts, and I got to get the radiator hoses involved, which I have a new neck for a thermostat housing, Power steering lines. Power steering setup it's a Saginaw pump, believe it or not. It actually had a Saginaw pump on the original Subaru, so the rack and everything will bolt up. I just got to go have lines made. Takes the same size fittings, they're just all pre-bent. Oh, the lines are pre-bent, so I'm going to go to stainless steel braided line. That's the ones I'm doing. So I'll get them made. I'm going to go deliver them, drop them off. They have them done this week. Might have them by the end of the week, maybe beginning of next week. The exhaust, I already touched on that. So, because the headers are done, and I don't know if I filmed that or not, but the shifter is too far forward because this is an S10 transmission. It's a completely different seated position for you to reach up. So I'm just gonna make I think it's called a dog bone. A lot of race cars use them. If not, I got an idea for some cool linkage that we'll do. And the wiring, all this kind of lops into that, along with the instrument cluster, which I got to put on this list. So the wiring's got to get done, which includes moving the battery to the trunk. The alternator is got to go to Wangers to get converted to a single wire. So basically, I don't need an external regulator or anything like that. I just hook the one power wire up and go. And the headlights have to be robbed off a donor car for the Brat. Instrument cluster, the dash is sitting in. Everything seems to be like it needs at the point, I'm guessing. Hopefully I don't have to pull that back out. I don't want to. The only reason I might have to pull it back out is if I decide to change the colors of the interior because it's tan. So, it's not bothering me at the moment, so it'll stay like that. But the instrument cluster, the stock one, is no good. I can't use any of it because the clutch master cylinder, now that it's been rotated and put on the inside of the car, is no longer of use to me. It's actually hits the stock instrument cluster. So I'm gonna just cut a piece of aluminum to fit in there, and I've already bought all my gauges. And when I say bought, I mean like I've had a whole bunch of them for some time. So I went on eBay and bought a speedometer. It's actually a pretty cool one. It was like somewhere between $60 and $80. I can't remember. It's been like a month or so. What it was is it's GPS. I don't have to hook it to nothing. All I got to do is give it power wires. So it's got a GPS sensor that you mount under the dash and tells you how fast you're going. I got like a voltage meter and little indicator lights for turn signals and brakes, like e-brake and all that jazz. I already had purchased, so I have, even though it doesn't do me any good, I got a boost gauge. That'll probably get saved for something else. Water temperature, voltage and oil pressure, and a big old monster tack. So all that stuff's gonna go in the car. And I got a high beam, low beam indicator. Basically I'm just building like a race car looking instrument cluster. And the carb, I don't like the carb. I have, here's a 800. This is the only one I have. I was using for mock-up purposes for like the hood to make sure it would fit. This being a Holley double pumper, this is the rear bowl, the rear pumper and bowl and all that jazz. It covers up the vacuum port on the intake, which I'm not going to pull the intake to get another port put on, so that's got to go. We're going to probably just buy some like Edelbrock carburetor or something like that. So we're going to get this done. Just enough so we can at least putt around in it. Maybe go put some gas in it, hit some local car shows, and go, I got a V8 and a Subaru. So, meantime, let's get crack-a-lacking. Upon entering the interior, you can see there's no interior. So I still gotta put the instrument cluster back in. You may or may not be able to see it here, but this is right here, this little reservoir. It's a one cast piece it's actually for an S10, because that's what a lot of this stuff came out of, for the transmission wise and clutch assembly and all that. The clutch itself is brand new, but so the instrument, it hits the instrument cluster, so we're just going to build a new panel here. The shifter is actually in like second or fourth, so you see if I try to go up with it, it just doesn't work. So I'm gonna modify that, basically just lop it off, put a piece of plate steel on it like a 1/4 inch thick, bring it back, and we can tilt it at whatever angle we want. And because it's completely welded on there, that shifter setup doesn't twist. It's designed to just sit forward. So here is, and this dash here is just kind of sitting there for now. But this is where the seat's going to go, so I'm going to mount this seat. I dug around, found the bolts, and we're going to mount off the stock seat, the slider, and then figure out how to mount our racing seats. There we go. There. So you just pull the latch, move that one all the way back, make sure that one's all the way back so they're both lined up. Alright, the brackets, the seat, stock seat brackets mounted in the place where they need to be on the floor. I have to make a joining. They're like, the mounts is like 13 inches apart, but it's like 18 inches. The actual, the bolt holes are like 13 inches apart, and the mount is like 18 inches apart. So, gotta make up the difference. I set it in the car. It's a little tall for my liking, but then again, I'm 6'4". So, I can lower the brackets again later. Main thing is just start, like I said, I'm trying to get this car together and we'll tinker with it later. So I'm taking the flat bar, yay big. This is 3/16, 1 inch wide, 1 1/4 wide, 3 feet long. So I cut 2 pieces, the front and the rear. They are actually like a 1/16 or an eighth off of each other. And basically all I did was measure to the outside of the bolt holes that are stock for the stock seats. So what I'm going to do is mark them on the center and a 1/16 for that one. So we're going to measure them, the center of the bolt holes, and then just throw them on the drill press. Alright, I got the holes drilled, threw them on the drill press up there, measured it out for the center, and came out. The holes are actually evenly spaced for both front and rear. But as you see, it sticks out just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is sit the seat in the car on the tracks. Make sure it's lined up. Then the welder's crammed in the corner, the MIG. Throw a couple of tacks on it. Now that's all welded up, and one thing I did have to do, the adjustment arm that hooks to the wire to be able to adjust both sides of it, there's a little wire, it hits right here. I took my grinder and just cut into it, and we're just going to give it a little bit of room. This should be enough right there, and gonzo. Alright, with the little piece that I cut tucked in, now clears, and I tightened up the wire so the seat's ready to go in. It's mounted. And that's all the way back. The seat slid all the way back. The seat actually has an adjuster on both sides. So this is about how normally cramped I am in a compact car anyway, so cruising along, get it in there. Oh yeah. Moves forward, moves backward. Now, I'm not saying this is the way you're supposed to do it. I'm trying to tell you this is how I did it, just only for a couple of bucks. Like I said, I bought these seats secondhand for like 75, 80 bucks, something like that, off of Craigslist. This one's mounted. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one same way. So we can go ahead and cross that off the list and get moving on the next thing.